Hey guys, welcome back to Leadership Detectives. I hope you're having a good week so far. Human emotions. Some of them can help us, some of them can hinder us. The one we want to talk about today is that of blame. If you've got a blame culture in your organisation, it can be so destructive. Looking at who made the mistake, why did they do it wrong? And trying to get rid of that from your business is the role of a leader. Leaders should stop that blame culture within their business and first of all try to understand it and then take action to remove it. On its own, it isn't everything, but if it's an underlying culture and you've got that underlying behaviour, it could stifle the growth of your business and the positive development that you need. So this episode is about understanding that and looking at what leaders can do to address that within their business. This episode, by the way, was suggested to us by one of our loyal listeners, James Loftus. So James, this one's for you. Guys, hope you enjoy. Please take on board the lessons and I hope it makes your business better. Take care.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Detectives, where we're trying to uncover clues of great leadership. And I'm delighted to be joined, like I am every time on our 34th episode, by my good friend Albert Joseph. How you doing, mate?
I'm really good. You're right. Episode 34. Fantastic. Really good, actually. How's your week been? How's it been? What have you been up to?
It's been all right. Yeah, no, I've had a busy week. I've obviously here in this room, I like everybody, but I haven't had any courses to teach this week. I've been doing some coaching and I've had some kind of new projects I've been doing online, which has been really interesting. So learning new stuff, which has been good fun. How about you?
Yeah, likewise, actually. I've got work going on at home, as you know. So from a personal side, that's going on, which is really good. But on the business side, busy with the client I'm working with, but also potentially some new stuff coming up. So it's been a busy week, actually. There's a lot going on. Where are we now? We're still in January, right?
Just, yeah.
Man, I mean, it's kicked off and it's just been going crazy. I remember when we did the one we recorded at the end of 2020 and you said, should we feel guilty about the fact that we've actually probably had a good year?
Yeah.
But it's just come into this year and kept going, right? So hope that's the same for our listeners out there, right? I hope you guys are having a good year. I hope it's kicked off well for you. But can we add value for you now? Let's see.
And I wanted to have a chat with you today as well, mate, because I've been a bit worried about our podcast, listening's going down a bit. And you own podcasts, and I want to know what you're doing about it.
Yeah. It isn't all my fault, right? Because you didn't tell me that I owned podcasts. I knew I was running with podcasts, but I didn't know I owned it.
Oh, so it's my fault.
Well, maybe it's not your fault. It's just about a lack of clarity about what you needed me to do.
Oh, okay. All right. Which leads us on. Go on.
I know. I'm a bit demotivated now, actually.
Yeah, so you're feeling more committed now to doing a better job with the podcast?
Probably not, no.
And so we wanted to talk today about the damage a blame culture can do and how leaders have a responsibility for trying to avoid a blame culture and create the opposite, create a non-blame culture and how it can empower your business.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we wanted to talk about because we see it everywhere. And I listened to something this morning, which was interesting. And they asked a big group of leaders and they said, how many things that go wrong are someone else's responsibility? Mm-hmm. And 70% of them said, 70% of those problems were someone else's responsibility.
Wow.
When they actually drilled into those specific issues that had happened, it was like 2 to 5% were someone else's responsibilities. The other ones were avoidable with better leadership and with enabling the people to succeed.
Wow.
So it's a real problem. I mean, what's your experience of blame culture?
I don't know. Look, if we look at the world we came from and the jobs that we did, the major company you and I worked in, it was really, really prevalent, right? It wasn't about the issue as much, which was crazy. It was much more about who are we going to hold accountable for what happened. I have no problem with the word accountability, by the way, because that tells me what I own and what I'm responsible for. But if accountability word is turned into, I'm going to blame you for it because you didn't get it right, I don't get that. So my experience of it is it can be very damaging. But if we can turn it on its head and actually understand not blame, but accountability, how can we use that more positively? But unfortunately, if you use the word blame is just negative, isn't it?
It is, and it's everywhere, right? In human beings, one of our natural reactions, because of our reptilian brain, is fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
So emotionally, when we're put in a threatening position, we fight. And one of the ways we fight is through blame.
Yeah.
We go, hang on, that wasn't me, that was someone else.
Deflect it, right? Let's
deflect it, or don't take it on board. And it's very natural to do that. And I'm guilty of doing it in a work environment, in a home environment. Actually, to be fair, at home, I've blamed other people for things that were probably my fault.
She's probably not watching this, Neil.
No, let's hope not. And but one of the most embarrassing, I'll tell you a story. So one of the most embarrassing, and this is one of the things about blame, right? When you blame someone and you know it's your fault, it's actually but one of the most embarrassing things happened when I was in the military and I was in the bomb disposal unit, and we were doing an exercise clearing a building of IEDs, of improvised explosive devices. And I was the commander in charge. The team went in to make the safe. And because I was the bomb disposal expert, I had to go in and make the devices safe. And I did most of them. And there was one I thought I'd made safe, but I hadn't disconnected the battery, which was a key part. Anyway, I then got picked up by the people who were observing this exercise and said, look, you failed to do this, you would have blown your whole team up. And I went, no, that's not fair. That's not a great example of how to do this. You're being unfair on me. We should have done this. We should have that. And actually, the scenario wasn't the right scenario because that would have never really happened. And I just started laying out all these blames because I'd just blown up my team. And I just felt, I still remember it now. That's how embarrassed I was about it.
But that's a really good example, right? What good came from you worrying about blaming the fact that you've blown up your mate? What good came from that?
It was purely to deflect the situation and for me to fight back because I thought I was being attacked. Yeah. And I think that's what happens in business, in corporate, when someone is backed into a corner. Why did you miss your target? Why didn't you close that deal?
Yeah.
Then there's all these excuses as to why it's someone else's fault.
Yeah.
Well, the pricing was too slow, or the contract T's and C's didn't match what I needed, or the decision maker wasn't available, or I've heard all the excuses.
I used to run a business in IBM, and my sales leader once said, "It isn't my problem we can't make our targets. Offerings doesn't create anything for us to sell."
Exactly. So there's always, but there are some fair process issues that need reviewing, like that one. But in any organization, sales and product design always have challenges.
I think the interesting thing in this topic, and where Neil and I want to go with this, by the way, guys, is we want to end up in a place where we say, so what can you do about it? But there are some examples it's worth us putting on the table so you can think that through, because you've probably got some own examples from your own world, whether it's in your personal world or your business world. We've all been there, right? And we may have been there as the victim. We may have been there as the protagonist. Mm-hmm. And I think there's learning in both of those. But if you are the protagonist, you've got more control to not let this happen, right? And I also find, by the way, Neil, it's infectious. That Correct. If you start creating a different world, people will come with you on that world. If you create a world which is about blame, people will come with you on that world as well.
Well, so let's just explore that for a second, right? So let's look at the dark world of living in a blame culture.
Yeah.
And it is important to look at that. So I did a little bit of research on this, and wherever you look, the research kind of points to the same thing. So what's the damage it does to the business? Mm-hmm. And this is why it's important as leaders to listen to this, right? It damages your business. Mm-hmm. So what kind of damage does it do? The attrition rate of employees goes up because no one wants to live in a blame culture where whatever they do, they can't do it right or their boss is going to blame them.
Yeah.
The second one was it reduces productivity. It reduces that commitment you get from people when they want to be there and they feel empowered. The third one was you get decision escalation, which means you as a boss are the only one who can make decisions because no one wants to take the risk of making a decision below you in case they get blamed. And then the fourth one was it suppresses innovation and creativity because no one wants to take the risk of being wrong in innovating and creating or doing something that's outside of the process they've been told what to do. And that's the kind of damage. So blame at the top, because culture starts at the top, blame at the top drives blame downwards.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I wrote down as you were talking, risk taking, and then you came in with that one straight away, right?
Yeah.
We know that taking risks has the best potential for great outcomes, but it also has the risk that it could go wrong. But I can't remember whoever said it, and there are people who question who actually said it, right? Somebody told me it was Nelson Mandela, but it might have been others. There is no failure. There is only success and learning. Now, I don't know who actually really said that, but the truth is, if you don't take risks, you won't do that. And you're not going to take risks if you're going to be blamed. You're going to sit back, take the safest course of action, which probably has the least best outcome, right? Because you're not pushing it to as far as you could push it. Personal view.
Yeah, why would you stick your head above the parapet if you know it's going to get shot off and you're going to get blamed if it goes right? And if it goes right, of course, your boss is going to take the credit for it.
Yeah.
So I think that, who wants to live in that place where you cannot grow if you don't expand, and to expand, you've got to make things go wrong. There's Hoffman, the guy who set up LinkedIn. I can't remember it'll come to me. But he put in his manager's objectives. Reid Hoffman. He put in his manager's objectives to fail 20% of the time. And they had to prove to him that they failed 20% of the time. And if they didn't, they had to explain what they were going to do next month to fail 20% of the time. Because he knew that he had to create a culture where it was okay to fail. Otherwise, they couldn't grow.
Imagine you're going out in the morning looking for an opportunity of failure to work on.
Yeah. Now there's a difference between failing and cocking up, and damaging the business. It's failing because you're trying something new.
Take risks, push yourself.
Yeah. Push the envelope, whatever the term is. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I think the Matthew Syed's book, Black Box Thinking, is and a lot of people out there in leadership world will have read it, but he talks about two great examples in there of healthcare and the aviation industry. Mm-hmm. And he's talking about it in the feedback culture, but it fits with blame as well. So in the healthcare industry, in the US specifically, when things go wrong, everybody's trying to cover their backsides because they don't want to be sued, because there's a blame culture. If it goes wrong, someone must be to blame. In fact, you see adverts saying that, don't you?
Yeah.
Where there's blame, there's a claim.
Where there's a blame, there's a claim. Absolutely. Yeah. Spot
on. So when things go wrong, they don't look and go, right, what can I learn from this so that the next patient doesn't suffer from this? Everybody buttons down the hatches, hides what happened, and no one learns from it. And guess what? People die the next day of the same thing, but the same mistake.
Yeah.
Whereas in the aviation industry, when they sit down and review a near miss or an incident, they have a process of learning. Mm-hmm. Where they listen to everybody, the pilots, the engineers, everybody, ground crew, and they try and improve and learn from it, not blame anyone. And guess what? It's the safest form of transport.
There's a good connection there, isn't there, between not having a blame culture and continuous improvement. There's a good connection there, which I hadn't thought of, right? Yeah. And you said something in our preparation as well, Neil, was around fear, right? Yeah. This whole thing just carries fear within it. Fear of failure, I think, was one thing you said. Yeah. What was the other one that you mentioned?
So I was talking about fear of failure, and then there's incompetence as well.
Yeah, fear of failure or incompetence. Let me tell you, it was an interesting conversation we had, guys, because we said, as a leader, you're probably either fear of failure or fear of it. Incompetence.
Yeah, or incompetence. If you're a bully, if you're a bully as a leader, you're either scared or you're incompetent, and you're blaming other people.